Hi, welcome to Module 11, Stakeholder Management. I'm Dr. Prabhakar Ghantasala, Associate Dean, School of Business, Southern Connecticut State University. Why are we here to discuss stakeholder management? We all realize that every organization, every institution, every entity, we are here to engage with different kinds of stakeholders, including our own employees, customers, clients, suppliers, vendors, government agencies, regulatory bodies, also the members of the broader community and society at large, and the planet. So obviously, it's important for agile leaders while they lead organizations and want to create transformative entities based on innovation culture and learning. They have to understand the importance of managing stakeholders, understand who our stakeholders are, understand what their needs are, their importance, and their interest, and based on which, use the right messaging, the frequency, the choice of channel, and have them engaged, serve them better, and make sure we benefit from their engagement. The module overview, we want to know what stakeholder definitions and types are. So there could be primary, that are direct impact kind of stakeholders. Obviously, we just discussed a few. Customers are primary stakeholders, so is the case with employees, and those that have invested their resources in us or are investors. There are secondary stakeholders who have indirect impact, like the community, media, and industry groups, and there are tertiary stakeholders who have peripheral impact, like general public potential customers. The key principles that we'll discuss in this module are early identification of our stakeholders, who they are, what category or definition types they belong to, what is the level of continuous engagement with each of these stakeholder groups, and how do we create value and offer value for our stakeholders. So we'll discuss stakeholder analysis and prioritization. Based on the power and interest matrix that we have, we can figure out if they are high power, high interest kind of stakeholders, or if they belong to a high power or low interest kind of stakeholders. If we figure out that our stakeholders, our type of stakeholders have high power, and they also have a high level of interest in our organization, products and services that we offer, they become extremely key for our organization. They are key players. And that's why we require to provide them with close management. And we must engage with them regularly and have the right set of tools, the number of meetings, use the right set of channels to communicate, and carefully process the messaging, and the content of messaging has to be monitored while engaging with these key players who have high power and also showcase high interest in our organization. Then there is a second category of stakeholders who are high power, but they have low interest. You've got to make sure as an organization you keep them satisfied, you monitor for any changes, and you provide them with periodic updates because they belong to high power. They might show not so much of an interest. Then you have the third category of stakeholders that we call low power but high interest. They might wield lower power, but they have extreme interest. So keep them informed. You regularly communicate with them because they show high interest, and also take feedback because they have high interest. You might want to see how they can be transitioned to high power, high interest kind of stakeholders. The last category of stakeholders are low power, low interest, for which organizations might utilize lower amount of resources, minimal monitoring of such stakeholders, have standard communication in place, and have efficient management systems in place to monitor low power, low interest kind of stakeholders. Examples for how organizations engage with stakeholders is Microsoft's Windows 11 launch. Microsoft has an extensive developer engagement strategy, also manages their enterprise customer management really well, takes in consumer feedback and integrates them into the launch and into the features that Microsoft's Windows platform utilizes. What kind of communication strategy would we adopt for engaging with stakeholders? For example, the communication strategy itself. The key elements of communication strategy with our stakeholders includes, as I discussed earlier, channel selection. Should we want to engage our stakeholders using digital platforms? Would we engage with our stakeholders face to face? Would written communication be the most effective channel to reach out to our stakeholders? Or if it's a broad spectrum of stakeholders across the globe, Would it be social media based on the demographics, the age group, preference of a channel, that we might have to pick and choose the right channel to communicate with our stakeholders? The second element that applies to the communication strategy is message development. So when we are building a message for delivering to our stakeholders, it's important that we understand who our stakeholders are, what their specific requirements are, preferences are, what kind of information is that they look for. So stakeholder specific content has to be created, cultural considerations must be given, and timing optimization is extremely important so that the message gets delivered to this kind of stakeholder group. Feedback mechanisms have to be established so that surveys and focus group interviews can be conducted. Real-time analytics must be monitored. Sentiment tracking among stakeholders is a key element. And by taking this kind of feedback, you can actually make improvements in your communication strategy, the choice of channels, the content that has to be created that would interest the stakeholders, would get them more engaged with organizational efforts and initiatives. So understanding the kind of strategy is important for agile leaders while engaged. There's this next aspect of conflict resolution and risk management. Obviously, you want to make sure that if some of the stakeholders have a problem, they raise concerns, they have conflicting interests, how do you identify conflicts and how do you manage and mitigate the risk? So the resolution framework in terms of having a conflict with one of your stakeholders is to see if there is interest-based problem solving. If you identify what problems stakeholders bring to the table and then have option generation to provide solutions and then give them the solution implementation to satisfy their requirements to address their problems or concerns. The risk categories have to be clearly defined. It could be relationship risks, operational risks, and strategic risks. So anything that relates to stakeholder engagement could be classified in terms of risks that might arise from relationship with the stakeholder, operational risk of certain initiatives and processes within the company, or strategic risks that can happen from time to time. It's now also important that conflict resolution risk management involves us understanding risk mitigation strategies. So, as an organization, an agile leader must figure out what are the best risk mitigation strategies that are at our disposal when we deal with different stakeholders. An early warning system can really help figure out what kind of conflicts might arise with involving different stakeholders. As an organization that's proactive, as a leadership that's very proactive, regular check ins can only help understand and take feedback and listen to different stakeholders. If there's a problem that stakeholders want to escalate, what are the escalation procedures? And if there is documentation practices, then what are the documentation practices that must be in place so that stakeholder concerns are documented properly and are reviewed from time to time? An example would be Google's Android platform, where developer policy changes are informed. That's an early warning system. Privacy requirements are very clearly defined. Regular check-ins are there, and improvements in the privacy policy is there. Revenue sharing conflicts can be there based on developers who create apps on Google's Android platform. And obviously, Google manages all these really well. And the resolution success rate between what Google does with its platform app builders is about 85%, which is pretty high. Now, measuring success and future trends in managing stakeholders, you have certain key metrics that you want to pay attention to. As an agile leader, you want to make sure you have the key metrics that you're using to measure stakeholder engagement. One of the most important engagement indicator is participation rates. So when you call in your stakeholders, it could be your employees, it could be customers, it could be your investors, it could also be government or regulatory agencies, it could be a broader community or societal members as well, and obviously it could be industry partners. So what kind of participation rates? The more participation rates, it's a clear measure of your success in terms of engaging with stakeholders, using the right communication channels, and having an early warning system, providing regular updates, having kind of regular check-ins. So participation rates, increase in participation rates is a very good indicator of engagement indicator as a key metric which measures success of an organization while engaging stakeholders. Also, response times when stakeholders raise their concerns. How long does an organization take to respond, to fix a problem, to provide solutions, to have those discussions that contribute to providing solutions. The satisfaction scores from different stakeholder groups is essential. You're doing surveys, doing focus group interviews, collecting information from different stakeholders periodically. And if they report out higher satisfaction scores, that's a clear indication that the organization is engaged with meaningful stakeholder engagement, has the right practices and tools, and the leadership has been successful in improving the satisfaction rates from different stakeholder groups. Stakeholder engagement also has a massive impact on business impact, including project success rate, risk reduction, and value creation. At the end of the day, every organization is here to create value. So if you're creating value for your customers, you're creating value for employees, provide meaningful work opportunities, provide great products and services to customers. Make sure you create a healthy environment for your product, supplies and vendors that support your manufacturing. You create a healthy ecosystem for them. You make sure that you have an entire, outbound logistics system that is pretty successful, also that is profitable as well. If the outbound logistics partner well with you, and if they are happy, end users like customers are happy with the kind of user experience and after sales support that you provide. If you're in compliance with regulatory authorities across the globe, governments are happy that you're creating employment by paying attention to societal needs, solving social problems, as well as paying attention to the planet and the environment at large. I think you would have probably created value, you would have reduced risk, and also you have greater success in terms of implementing different projects in your portfolio of businesses. The third measure for seeing if you're successful in engaging stakeholders is figuring out emerging trends. Now, digital transformation and stakeholder management is big. So obviously, our stakeholders have taken to the use of digital tools, AI included, and automation. So obviously, real-time feedback can be provided from our suppliers, vendors, customers, employee experiences, and other regulatory authorities. So using digital tools and AI, the emerging trends are that we have real-time data. Like for example, Amazon picks up satisfaction and browsing satisfaction on their Amazon portal, and it also can figure out what kind of products are being sold for each customer, their preferences, their tastes, and it also gives you kind of similar products from different competing brands to add to the satisfaction index. Sustainability focus is another measure of stakeholder engagement and creating positive value and building a strong reputation and brand image. So organizations such as again Amazon have committed to reducing carbon footprint while trying to reduce the packaging material that goes in their daily deliveries. Also, companies like Walmart have invested huge into reducing carbon footprint, becoming more green, and there are several other companies that want to reduce carbon footprint in that space. So they're also sustainability focused in terms of using less amount of resources, leaving a lesser reduced carbon footprint. Companies that want to go net zero at some point of time. Stakeholder capitalism, having to serve stakeholders in their best interest, providing them value for all their resources, time, and talent that they have put in. I think that's another very important way of looking at how to engage stakeholders in meaningful ways, let them contribute to mission advancement, as well as make it a meaningful experience for everybody engaged with the organization. Thank you.